A week, it is indeed a long time in politics. But when Nepali politics is an exception, the country it is caught in this strategic bind. There is this overbearing India, there is the superpower, the United States, and there is China. At this juncture, the country has been finding quite difficult to accommodate the overriding interests of giant neighbors as well as the superpower. Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal's recent visit to the United Nations in New York and then subsequently to China has highlighted that this uh, impossible situation that Nepal faces. The circuitous journey that Prime Minister Dahal took to reach Beijing perhaps is a pointer to the priorities that the current government has set when it comes to relations between major powers. Before embarking to address the United Nations General Assembly's 78th session, the Prime Minister visited India well back. That was quite some time back. But the precedence, the priorities, the corollary of the, the series of visits indicates what priorities. It's in fact makes it clear what priorities Nepal has for countries in this global scheme of things. The Prime Minister visited India, then after some time he went to address the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Experts point that the Prime Minister could have just avoided the General Assembly of the world body, not just because the United Nations has become this League of Nations 2.0, but it is quite customary for the foreign minister of a country to represent that forum, to represent his country, her country in that forum. Nonetheless, he went ahead with his visit. That was quite okay. It is a matter of importance for Nepal. The United Nations, Nepal is one of the largest uh, troops contributor to the world body in its peacekeeping missions. Though the country has not been at peace with itself and the rest of the world for quite some time, it nonetheless leaves no stone unturned to restore peace around the world. Wonderful, isn't it? Great. After his visit to the United Nations, he headed off to China. This circuitous path. First, he embarks on a visit to India. That was quite some time back. Then on, he heads to the United Nations to address the General Assembly. The 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. And then on, he heads to China on a week-long visit. Remember, China is also a next-door neighbor of Nepal, apart from India, the overbearing southern Nepal, the overbearing southern neighbor. Sorry for that slip of tongue. Let's recall at this point had what Dahal, the Prime Minister, had promised to the sovereign parliament of Nepal before embarking on this visit to China, his third as the head of this government. Dahal had said that he would seek to sign a framework agreement, an agreement for the implementation of China's Belt and Road Initiative. He had also pledged, promised to sign a cross-border energy trade agreement with China. Also, he had promised to seek to bring in huge Chinese investment in Nepal. Those were some of the promises that he had made, and not to forget that he had promised to strive to open some more border points with China. But the press releases, the joint statement released after his visit to China does not show that any of those pledges have materialized. In fact, some experts say that there is a growing feeling in China that Nepal is veering off from its non-aligned policy. Nepal is one of the founding members of this non-aligned movement. It is like uh, becoming more and more relevant in this day and age when superpower is on the decline. The world's superpower is on the decline, and this decline is making way for a multipolar world. China is rising, and so is India, and so is Russia, the erstwhile Soviet Union. There are several blocks, not necessarily military blocks, trade blocks, economic blocks, like BRICS, that comprises its original members, that are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. There have been some additions to that club, that clique. Turkey has joined in, so has Ethiopia, so has Egypt, Saudi Arabia, as well as Iran, with those members uh, lobbying for the inclusion of their respective favorite countries into that club. So the unipolar world is giving way gradually to a multipolar world. In this context, this visit comes. This A number of experts attribute this Dahal's failure to just walk the talk, his promises made in the parliament, to some instructions during his visit to the United Nations General Assembly. Of course, no one else but Dahal knows the truth, He has compulsions. He has his hands tied, perhaps, because of this global geopolitical order, but none of the lofty promises that Dahal made in the sovereign parliament materialized have materialized during his visit to China. Despite this setback, the Prime Minister uh, addressing a function in Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, he said that his visit was like more successful than he had expected. The hall needs to just raise the bar when it comes to just expecting things. He has described his uh, hour long meeting with the Chinese president Xi Jinping as a mark of success because Xi is a very busy leader. He is a prominent leader of the globe that is given, and it is quite important. It is noteworthy that he gave the Prime Minister from of Nepal an hour for discussions on crucial topics on the sidelines of the Asian Games 2023. Dahal was there primarily to attend that week-long mega sporting event. So he has taken that 1 hour meeting with uh, Chinese President Xi as a mark of success of his visit. It is customary indeed for Nepal's prime ministers and foreign ministers uh, to label their visit as a smashing success the moment they touchdown. They arrive at the Tribhuvan International Airport from junkets primarily. So the hall was no like exception to that, not so like welcome tradition, not so welcome practice of labeling one's own visit a smashing success without the country getting anything from those such junkets. There was no crumb of hunger. That is something what Prachanda, the Maoist chair, the Maoist supremo, was known for in the past, in whose interest his Krama Bhanga worked, the world knows and Nepal knows, but he was known for that, like his departures from the past. Coinciding with Prime Minister Dahal's China visit, the embassy of India fired a series of tweets. Those tweets sought to detail uh, arrangements between Nepal and India. India likes to call them areas of cooperation, but they are primarily projects that protect India's overbearing interests, even at the expense of Nepal. So that also did not help, perhaps. So, and that meant that the hall was unable to raise, like, to go ahead with his pledges, his promises made in the Parliament of Nepal, and just walk the talk. All in all, his visit to China was not as smashing a success as it is made out to be. That is clear as daylight. In fact, there is, perhaps I said this earlier as well in this presentation, there is a growing feeling in Nepal that there is a growing feeling in China that Nepal is veering away from its avowed stance of sticking to this uh, policy of non-alignment, the policy of Panchashil, if you will. That is not something that won't have repercussions on Nepal, I guess. They may have some serious repercussions on Nepal, but the political leadership of the day does not appear that sensitive in this matter. Also, there's a growing feeling in China that the United States Millennium Challenge Corporation Compact, this $640 million agreement with Nepal, meant to improve road infrastructure and develop rather a cross-border transmission line between Nepal and India. This transmission line traverses through major hydroelectric hubs of Nepal. It aims to evacuate power generated in Nepal to the Indian market. What does Nepal get by exporting raw green energy to a huge monopoly market at dirt cheap rates? No one knows that. Instead, Nepal can reap benefits by using by using the green energy to feed its industries, to run an electric transit system, an electric transport system, and opt for massive industrialization within the country itself. That would give Nepal this multiplier benefits. It would have a cascading effect on the national economy, but Nepal's political leadership in particular seems bent on uh, selling the country down the river by exporting power, the green energy, to the neighboring market at dirt cheap rates, with huge environmental and other costs to be borne by Nepal, of course. An electricity trade deal with China could have given Nepal a better option. It could have brought in Chinese investment, and Nepal could have used the energy thus produced, thus generated, to fuel its economy and sell surplus power to Tibet and beyond. But that was not to be, and that was a smashing miss, if you will. But this is perhaps lost on Prime Minister Dahal. All in all, in my reading, this visit was not that much of a smashing success. It has not brought much tangible benefits to Nepal. As for the Prime Minister and his ilk, it is customary. It is a time dishonored tradition of labeling one's foreign junket a success. With this third remark, I wrap up this edition of Soft Talk. Remember, this presentation is not against any country. It is not against any political leader, but it is for Nepal and it is for the Nepalese. I request you to subscribe to this channel, comment on our presentation, and press that like button if it touches your hearts and minds. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.